Hey folks, this is Rhykker with a Diablo 3 Demon Hunter build guide. This guide will be for the Gears of the Dreadlands GoD Demon Hunter, which will be the best Demon Hunter build of Season 24. It's been the best Demon Hunter build for a while. It likely will continue to be. This is a Season 24 guide, but we'll also have non-seasonal information here for you so that if you're playing non-season or coming from the future, as long as there's no major balance changes, this guide should still apply. This build again is the GoD Demon Hunter, the God Demon Hunter, and the gameplay footage you're seeing in the background is from the God of Demon Hunters himself, Wudijo. I encourage you folks to check out the legend himself, Wudijo, on his Twitch stream, see him in action. And you can also follow along with the written version of this guide on maxroll.gg, put together by pro players Northwar and Wudijo. In this video, we're going to cover the gear, the skills, and the playstyle that you want to rock this build. And it all begins with the Gears of the Dreadlands set. The 2-piece bonus makes you gain 4 seconds of momentum when attacking with a primary skill at a max duration of 20 seconds. Your primary skills deal 10% increased damage per second of momentum. So 5 casts of a primary skill builds up 20 seconds of momentum, which gives you your max bonus. The 4-piece bonus, strafing against enemies, will automatically shoot your last used primary skill and also give 60% damage reduction while strafing and for 5 seconds after. While strafing, you gain 8% increased move speed for each second of momentum. This build is the spin to win Demon Hunter. You are zooming by fast, strafing non-stop, killing things. This build is the end-all, be-all for Demon Hunters. This single build does everything. Speed runs, pushing, whatever you want to do, the GoD set can do it and probably do it better than any other Demon Hunter set. Then lastly, the 6-piece set, your primary skills deal 15,000% increased damage. That's a little bit of damage. So this build uses a generator as a damage dealer and strafe as a vehicle. Now we're going to need some supporting items as well. The Quiver, the 9th series satchel. Hungering Arrow is guaranteed to pierce and also deals 600% increased damage. Hungering Arrow can only pierce up to 4 times. This will be a Hungering Arrow build. Hungering Arrow is what gives us the biggest damage multiplier to work with. The Hunter's Wrath Belt. Your primary skills, attack faster and deal increased damage, natural fit. Now we'll also work in a Dawn. This is a Demon Hunter staple. Reduce the cooldown of Vengeance by 65%. Vengeance is a very powerful Demon Hunter skill if you can achieve 100% uptime with it. That is a huge power to have up at all times. Dawn helps us with that. In our cube, we're going to slap in some Depth Diggers. Primary skills, deal double damage. And then we'll also use some Wraps of Clarity, your Hatred Generators, i.e. Hungering Arrow. Reduce your damage taken by 50% for 5 seconds. Good amount of toughness here. Now some other items that'll help out. Squirt's Necklace. While not taking damage, damage dealt is increased by up to 100%, and damage taken is increased by up to 50%. Huge damage multiplier. We're going to try to maintain as much uptime as this is possible, which basically means don't get hit. We have opportunity to work in Focus and Restraint Rings. When you hit with a resource generating attack or primary skill, deal 50% increased damage for 5 seconds. When you hit with a resource spending attack, deal another 50% increased damage. And these stack with each other, meaning it's not 50% plus 50% equals 100%, i.e. double damage. It's first your damage is increased by 50%, so 100 damage becomes 150 damage. Then that's another 50% multiplier on top of it. So we now go from 150 to 225. So it's a 125% damage increase. Now for Season 24, if you have access to ethereals, you're gonna want the Burrito do Cannon, the good old Burrito Cannon. This weapon has a 35% chance to freeze on hit, and hits against frozen enemies are always crits. It's also given us 150% damage to all Demon Hunter skills, a stacking damage buff with Paragon. It's all around the highest DPS option for us for this build. Now for this build, you absolutely do need a Dawn. So you're gonna put that in the cube. And then the legendary power on your Bariza, because a Bariza rolls with a random weapon legendary power, to begin with, doesn't matter. Just get a Bariza, that's your priority 1. Priority 2 would be to get a Bariza that has a useful legendary weapon power on it. And what we're looking for is either a Vala's Bequest, which makes strafe projectiles pierce, or a Fortress Ballista, which makes attacks grant you an absorb shield, stacking up to 10 times. The Fortress Ballista helps us keep up our Squirt's Necklace buff. And Vala's Bequest is useful because it synergizes with the GoD 4-piece. Remember, the 4-piece is strafing against enemies will automatically shoot your last used primary skill. That should be, in this case, Hungering Arrow, our damage dealer. So now the piercing projectile of Strafe is not just going to hit one enemy, but potentially more than one enemy, thereby triggering potentially more Hungering Arrows. That said, there is an internal cooldown to how often this can trigger. You can't get 1,000,000 per second. So the overall estimated power increase that you get by using a Vala's ranges from 0% to about 25%, depending on the density of monsters you're dealing with. The greater the density, at max density, it's about a 25% damage increase. Against a single target or low density, you're basically not benefiting at all. Now, another option you can go with is the Odyssey's End Bow. This is for the dual generator version of this build. This is more complex to play. There's a very high skill ceiling to this, but it would squeak out more damage. We covered that version of the build in our older video here. Do feel free to run with that version. I know a lot of people just vastly prefer the far easier to run versions that aren't that much weaker. So to recap, if you have access to ethereals, number 1 priority is getting a Bariza. Number 2 priority is getting a Bariza with either a Vala's or a Fortress Ballista. If with the Fortress Ballista you find that you have the skill to keep up your Squirt's buff at least 50% of the time, then it's worth swapping to Fortress Ballista. If you're playing non-season or a future season without ethereals, then the items that you definitely do need: Dawn, 9th Series Satchel, and then again, either Fortress Ballista or Vala's Bequest, and it doesn't really matter in what order you have those equipped or cubed. You could, in theory, cube the 9th Series Satchel and dual-wield crossbows. For instance, if you have a Primal Vala's Bequest, an Ancient Dawn, and a terrible 9th Series Satchel, well, toss that satchel in the cube. As for your legendary gems, we're gonna get a Simplicity Strength. Increase the damage of primary skills, and hits with primary abilities heal you for 4% of your max health. The heal is nice, but really it's an enormous damage modifier, the biggest damage modifier that a generator build can acquire. Next, we're going to get a Taeguk. Gain increased damage for 1.5 seconds when you spend resource on a channeled skill. This effect stacks up to 10 times, and gain 2% increased armor for every stack. This is an amazing gem for channeling builds. This is a channeling build. More toughness, more damage, all from one gem. And then lastly, a Bane of the Trapped. The best all-around legendary gem for every situation. More damage against crowd-controlled enemies, and emits a crowd-controlling aura. In our cube, a Convention of Elements. Just like with pretty much every pushing build, whenever you can, work in a Convention of Elements for that big damage spike, and adjust your playstyle such that when you are in your convention rotation, this is a cold build, so when you're in cold, you are attacking enemies as much as possible, and it's outside of that window that you are setting up for your next salvo. If you really don't want to work with the Convention of Elements, or if you just want more toughness, you can instead go with an Elusive Ring. After casting Shadow Power, Smokescreen, or Vault, take 60% reduced damage for 8 seconds. Huge source of damage mitigation here. Now I'll go over exactly what we want on every piece of gear, but first the skills. Hungering Arrow, Devouring Arrow. We're taking Hungering Arrow because it is the generator that has the most supporting items, the highest damage multipliers on supporting items. And we're taking Devouring Arrow Rune because each consecutive pierce increases the damage of the arrow by 70%. And again, the power on our 9th Series Satchel makes Hungering Arrow guaranteed to pierce, making Devouring Arrow the highest damage rune. Next, we need to take Strafe. We're using this for mobility and to maintain our buffs. We're going to suggest the Drifting Shadow rune in order to make you move at 100% move speed as opposed to 75. If you really want to squeeze out every little last ounce of DPS, you can go with the Rocket Storm rune. That'll make you fire off a couple rockets, but you're giving up a lot of move speed for that. Next, we'll take Vengeance Darkheart. We're going to have 100% uptime on this. Vengeance gives us 40% increased damage. We gain immunity to crowd control effects, and with the Darkheart rune, we gain 50% damage reduction. So this is a huge source of damage and damage reduction. Next, we'll take Smokescreen Special Recipe. Smokescreen makes you momentarily invisible for 1 second. This is a huge defensive ability, and the Special Recipe rune reduces the cost of it to 8 discipline from 14, allowing us to use it more. For speed content, you can even go for the displacement rune to gain 100% move speed while invisible. Next, we'll want to take Preparation Focused Mind. Preparation restores discipline, and Focused Mind makes you restore more discipline, but over an amount of time as opposed to instantly. Preparation allows us to have more uptime on Smokescreen. Then we'll also work in Fan of Knives Bladed Armor. Bladed Armor makes Fan of Knives a defensive skill. Gain 40% additional armor for 6 seconds. This is another power that you ideally will want to have 100% uptime on. For our passives, we'll want to take Numbing Traps. Enemies you slow, chill, or hit with Fan of Knives, Spike Trap, Caltrops, Grenades, and Sentry Fire have their damage reduced by 25% for 5 seconds. Great defensive power. Hungering Arrow, Devouring Arrow will be ensuring that all enemies are under this effect. We'll take Awareness. This gives us an extra life. When we die, we don't actually die once every 60 seconds. For our other options, we have a few to choose from. Now we'll have 5 passives in total because we get to have a passive on our Ethereal. That said, if your Ethereal does not have one of the passives we talk about, it's okay. Don't trash an Ethereal over a passive. The passive is just a nice little added buff. Strive to get an Ethereal with a good passive, but be happy with an Ethereal with a good legendary power. So Ambush is a strong offensive option. You deal 40% additional damage to enemies above 75% health. Tactical Advantage is a great speed option. Whenever you use Vault, Shadow Power, Smokescreen, or Backflip with Evasive Fire, you gain 60% movement speed for 2 seconds. If you're pushing, you don't need this, but if you're doing more speed content, Tactical Advantage will give you that speed. Cull the Weak, very powerful, increased damage against slowed or chilled enemies by 20%. That's a nice damage buff. Archery. If you're wielding a crossbow, a two-handed crossbow that is, like the Bariza, 50% crit damage. This synergizes well with our Bariza's ability to always crit enemies. As for exactly what you want on every piece of gear. Shoulders. Dex, all resist, cooldown, area damage. Now, in order to maintain 100% uptime on your Vengeance, you need a total of 37% cooldown reduction on your character. That is assuming a perfectly rolled Dawn with 65%. If you extract it into the cube, it will be perfect. The more imperfect your Dawn, the more you have to go above 37% cooldown to maintain 100% uptime. For our Helm, we'll get Dex, Vitality, Crit Chance, Diamond for cooldown reduction. Our Amulet, cold damage, crit chance, crit damage. Gloves, Dex, crit chance, crit damage, cooldown. Chest, Dex, Vitality, all resist. Bracers, cold, Dex, Vitality, crit chance. Belt, Dex, Vitality, life, hungering arrow damage. Pants, Dex, Vitality, hungering arrow damage. Boots, Dex, Vitality, all resist armor. Your rings, crit chance, crit damage, area damage. And your 9th series satchel, Dex, attack speed, crit, cooldown, hungering arrow damage. For your Paragon points, max out your move speed, then get your Vitality up to about 800,000 life, then dump into Dex. For offense, cooldown reduction, crit damage, crit chance, attack speed. For defense, all resist, life percent, armor, life regen. For utility, area damage, resource cost reduction, life per hit, and pickup radius. For our follower, for Greater Rift pushing, you want the Scoundrel. We're gonna take Powered Shot for the stuns. We'll take Anatomy for the crit chance it gives us. We'll take Piercing Shot for the 10% damage buff. And we'll take Knight's Veil for the crit chance. For his gear, we're giving him the Skeleton Key to render him invulnerable. We'll give him a Flavor of Time that emanates to us. Pylon effects last twice as long. Nemesis Bracers emanates to us. Shrines will spawn an enemy champion. Oculus Ring. Chance to create an area of focused power on killing a monster. If you stand in that golden pool, you gain 85% more damage. We'll give him a Blind Faith Helm for that 40% chance to blind enemies on hit. This gives us more survivability, especially against the Rift Guardian. If the Rift Guardian can't see us, he can't hit us. If we're not getting hit, we still have our squirts buff, and we're not dying. We'll give him Ice Climbers to make him immune to freeze and immobilize effects. And we're actually gonna give him a Cluck Eye, because when you launch a chicken at an enemy, it does a little brief stun on them. We're also giving him a Court of the Shurma to further have a blind field, and for some extra attack speed, Talrash's Chest, 2 pieces of canes. Now for speed Greater Rifts, and this build works just as well for pushing as it does for speed greater rifts. You'll instead want an enchantress. We're going to give her the Hand of the Prophet token that gains access to all skills, but that means we have to help keep her alive. So we're going to give her a Mutilation Guard legendary gem, gain 60% melee damage reduction. We'll give her an Esoteric Alteration legendary gem, gain 60% non-physical damage reduction. And while below half-life, your resistances to cold, fire, lightning, poison, and arcane are increased by 75%. Her gearing priorities will be intelligence, then vitality, life, armor, all resist, life per hit, and lastly attack speed. Now for speed T16 rifts, you can change things up a little bit. Since we're talking about the enchantress right now, let's start with her. You're going to give her a Ring of Royal Grandeur, and then you're going to pop on 2 pieces of Canes and 2 pieces of the Sage's set. This will give us a 3-piece bonus of both. 3 pieces of Sage doubles the amount of Death's Breath set drop, and 3 pieces of Canes makes more GR keys drop. This makes us much more efficient at farming T16, meaning we have to do fewer T16 rifts and can spend more time doing greater rifts, gaining more XP and more reward. We'll give her Gloves of Worship. Shrine effects last for 10 minutes, emanates to us. This does not work on pylons, only on shrines, so this is outside of GRs. We're also going to give her an Avarice Band. Each time you pick up gold, increase your gold and health pickup radius by 1 yard for 10 seconds, stacking up to 30 times, emanates to us. Why do we care about that? Well, we're going to change our setup a little bit for T16. We are dropping the Bane of the Trapped gem. That's overkill. Instead, we're going to take a Boon of the Hoarder. 100% chance on killing an enemy to cause an explosion of gold. Gain 30% increased move speed for 2 seconds after picking up gold. So our Avarice Band is going to be able to scoop up all that gold instantly, and that's going to give us that nice move speed buff. In our cube, we're getting rid of the Depth Diggers, and we're actually going to equip them manually. Instead, we're taking a gold wrap. On gold pickup, gain armor for 5 seconds equal to the amount of gold picked up. So this completes the trifecta of Gold Wrap, Boon of the Hoarder, Avarice Band. With these 3 items, you're basically invulnerable in T16 speed content because you're picking up so much gold that your toughness will be through the roof. Now, in order to be able to equip those Depth Diggers, we are equipping a Ring of Royal Grandeur. We're also going to drop Focus and Restraint. Our new ring setup will be Ring of Royal Grandeur, Stone of Jordan, because you're not going to bother with the Convention of Elements in super speed T16 rifts. Stone of Jordan gives a more consistent damage buff. Cold skills deal 20% more damage, and increased damage versus elites. That's going to help us kill those tougher monsters. And the other ring we're going to take is Rechel's Ring of Larceny, in order to gain 60% increased move speed for 4 seconds after fearing an enemy. And the item itself has a 5.1% chance to fear on hit, so that's going to trigger every so often, giving us a nice move speed buff. We are looking to blitz it. So anywhere else that you can fit as a secondary property, fear on hit, that is now desirable to get. Now we no longer need the extra defense provided by Fan of Knives bladed armor, so we'll instead take Shadow Power, Shadow Glide. This is for that 30% move speed buff for yet more insane move speed. We'll drop one of our damage enhancing passives and instead take Blood Vengeance. Your max hatred is increased by 25, and in addition, gain 30 hatred and 3 discipline when you are healed by a health globe. We'll be killing monsters so fast, health globes will be dropping so much that we're going to be gaining discipline back. Gaining discipline back is going to help us spam our movement skills more. We're also going to drop Wraps of Clarity. Don't need that extra toughness. We'll get Warzekian Arm Guards. Every time you destroy a wreckable object, which will be very frequently since everything on screen is getting destroyed, you gain a short burst of speed. Now for this setup, if you do not have an Ethereal, if you don't have a Bariza, you would instead want to go with a Yang's Recurve because of the immense amount of resource cost reduction that rolls on it. And that's going to wrap up this video. But do be sure to check out our other video guides for all classes, as well as our upcoming tier list video on the best builds, and our video here on farming Ethereals as fast as possible to unlock the season exclusive transmog. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Twitch, Patreon, and YouTube supporters for making these videos possible. If you like what you see on this channel and want to support the creation of more content, you can consider pledging on YouTube or Patreon and unlocking behind the scenes content, monthly virtual hangouts, and more. If you enjoyed this video, please share it. Check out these other videos and subscribe to join Rhykker's Raiders for more Diablo content.